toxic love is when your trauma is the oxygen for your relationship.
Oh!
Right? If you think about the word, like the idea that your trauma is what you're breathing into the relationship.
Gosh, that is so true.
Right? You're just breathing your trauma into the relationship. So you bring all your baggage, all your insecurities, and you're somehow expecting the other person to inhale it all and then figure out how to respond and react.
Right.
Whereas a conscious relationship is saying that I have these things, I'm trying to heal them, I'm gonna make my partner aware of what I'm healing because I'm not fully healed.
Yes.
And now that they're aware and I'm working on it, we can also work on it together. So I think we've also had this unhealthy idea of conscious love being you're fully healed and then you come, it's like, that's not true. It's a journey. And so, but the thing about the journey is, are you working on yourself? Have you communicated to your partner what you're working on so that they can be aware? And thirdly, have you found a way to get support? I had a friend whose partner was addicted to porn. And they came up to me and they were saying that their partner feels shameful and guilty and wants to work on it. And I said, you have two choices. You can either leave them because you don't believe them and this affects you negatively, which it was, or you can stay with them and support them through their journey because they want to change. It's not that you're forcing them to change.
And they're honest about it. They're coming to you about it. They're vulnerable.
They're vulnerable. They're open about it. They're honest about it. And what I found in that scenario was that that person was able to support their partner and now they have a really healthy relationship. But the thing is that we can't also... a toxic relationship is also when you use someone's trauma against them. So someone's been vulnerable with you about what they're struggling with, and now you use it as ammunition in an argument to shoot them down.
Yeah.
And so when people are vulnerable with you, when they're honest with you, when they're transparent with you, don't use that against them because basically you're saying to them, don't be honest with me. And I think that's this really interesting thing. We all say, I want someone who's honest. But then when someone says something honest that's uncomfortable, we say, no, I don't want your honesty, or I don't like that. And I think you push the other person away.
Yes.
And so, yes, if they share something that's really not aligned with your values, of course you can leave and move on. But chances are, if they're opening up about a journey they're on, it's worth giving it an opportunity to support them if they're 100%. Serious about it.
I love your definition of toxic love versus conscious love. And when I was hearing you say this, I was thinking that conscious love is also wanting to take emotional responsibility and accountability for emotions, as opposed to saying, you made me feel this way. You said this, you didn't do this, and it made me explode on you. It's having the emotional responsibility to manage it. And if you aren't good at managing it, saying, I take full accountability and I'm working on that healing journey. And I think that responsibility and accountability adds to the potential growth for conscious love.
I love that. That's such a great point. It's such a great question too, because you also realize that we have so many flawed views of conscious love too.
Yes.
And so people always think like, oh, toxic love, that's the worst. You could actually be doing pseudo-conscious love, and that's even worse sometimes.
What does that mean? Like a spiritual bypass to conscious love?
Or like you're practicing it in a really superficial way. Like it's conscious in the language and the way you talk about it, but you're doing unhealthy things.
Yes.
Like, for example, you could think you're in conscious love, but you can't deal with someone's honesty. You think you're in conscious love, but you don't feel comfortable having uncomfortable conversations. You think, oh yeah, we just talk about good stuff and everything's positive.
Everything's perfect all the time.
Everything's perfect all the time. And we never
argue.
Yeah, we never argue. And it's like, well, no, it's important to have uncomfortable conversations. And so I find that a lot of couples struggle with having these uncomfortable conversations. We didn't get into fight styles, but we'll get there whenever you want because that question was so good. That question was so good. And don't feel, I mean, I'm saying this as a friend now, like off camera in the sense of like, this is so good, bro. Like, this is an interview that I haven't done with anyone because it's not about the book and we're getting into it. So it's like, don't feel any pressure to go into the, like, the stuff we're talking about is amazing.
Of course.
Yeah. I just reiterating as a friend.
Of course,
yeah. It's so good.
So what were you going to say though? You were saying something.
I was just saying that this superficial idea of conscious love becomes really practiced as a deeper love. So yeah, like we don't argue, but we avoid having uncomfortable conversations. Everything's always good, but I often go to sleep at night wondering what they're thinking, right? Like that's not conscious because it looks good. It's conscious because you're constantly working on it. I think we're so scared of accepting that something may need fixing because that means it's broken, but it's not broken. There's just parts to relook at.
Yes. What are the things that most people don't think are harmful to hurting loving relationships that are actually the most harm? Not like he cheated or she's lied to me or he's watching porn or whatever that is.
Yeah.
But what are actually the things that most people think, that's not really that big a deal?
Yeah.
That actually you do it year after year after year is a big deal breaker in ruining relationships.
Yeah.
Maybe it's the little things. Maybe it's the, whatever it might be. Is there anything you can think of?
There's a few things I can think of. I'd say there's 4 coming to mind right now.
Yep.
The first one I'd say is the idea of control. I think we're trying to control the other person, but it doesn't look like control. It looks like care. And that's the interesting thing.
It's like manipulative.
Correct.
Care.
Yeah, exactly. So control in a relationship can often look like care, but deep down you're doing it because you want to control the other person.
Right.
So you want to tell them what to wear. You want to tell them how to spend their money and how to invest it. You want to tell them how to live their life and which friends are good for them and which friends are bad for them. Now, it's different when that's a conversation from them to you and asking for your advice. But the best thing you can do as a coach, a partner, a guide, a friend, is to help someone understand what their goals are. We talk about this all the time. Like, we don't project what I think is a worthy life or a worthy podcast or a worthy home onto what someone else wants because we all have different values. Yeah. And so I think we do, controlling means I don't want to understand your values and what you believe in. I'm going to project mine onto you because I think they're superior anyway.
And I feel more comfortable if that's the case.
And it's very subtle. Like, this is something you have to really monitor. Like, I'll give an example of, like, I've always been driven, or at least I've been driven for a lot of my adult life. And one thing I had to be really careful for when I met Radhi was to not project my ambition and drive onto how she lived.
And hope she does the same thing.
Correct. Because Radhi's this beautiful, abundant, sun energy.
Joyful, feminine,
flowing. And she's in flow. And that's what makes her beautiful. That's what makes her attractive. It's what makes her special to me and to everyone else who knows her. And if I try and contain that and try and direct it towards what I think it should be, I could potentially make her lose all of that.
Right.
And so I've seen my role with Radhi as being more protecting and helping her protect that than exploiting it. Yeah. And I think it's so easy for us to think, well, I'm driven and I'm ambitious and look what I've done, and so my partner should do that too. And it's like, well, maybe they shouldn't. I remember I was speaking to a client, actually, no, this was a friend. They weren't a client. I was speaking to a friend and she was saying, oh, my partner, he's lazy. He doesn't work hard. He doesn't have any ambition. And I said, well, if you want someone who has ambition, is driven and works hard, then he's not your guy. That's basically all it's saying.
Right.
And she was saying, no, but he's really kind and loving and thoughtful. And I was like, okay, well, which one do you want? and if you want both, go out there and look for it. But chances are that's tough too.
Or he may not, if he's driven, he may not have as much time for you.
That's what it was. And that's that's exactly what she discovered, that she was like, I want someone who's driven and present. And I was like, they can be present in the moment, but they're not going to have as much time available.
Yeah. Or at least not during their season of being driven.
Correct.
Maybe in 20, 30 years, it'll change, but you can't expect it to change.
Exactly.
Okay, so that's number one, the idea of control.
Yes. The second one, which again is subtle, and that's why I love your quality of your question, because it's like, what do we miss or what do we not see, is comparison.
Yeah.
I think we do it without even knowing. I've heard couples literally say, oh, did you see like where they went for their anniversary trip? And there's some passive messaging in there.
That's true.
And you passing it off like you're really happy for this person, but really there's this part of you that's saying, we didn't do that. Or I wish we did that. Or why don't you think of stuff like that? Wow. And I think passive aggression in comparison will make your partner feel comparison is the number one thing you can do to make your partner feel devalued and unlovable. There is nothing like comparing your partner to another person. Now, some people will say, oh, I'm not comparing them, I'm just saying what someone else is doing.
Yeah, but you're pointing out something that we're not doing, which
Exactly.
makes me feel like I'm not enough.
Exactly. That is the bottom line.
That's it. And you do that week after week, year after year, you're like, I'm never enough for this person. What
Never.
do I need to do? So they start celebrating what we're doing, not what everyone else is doing.
Exactly. And I think that
Wow.
that comparing is so unhealthy.
Yep. Okay.
Two more. I think complaining about your partner to your family and other people, it creates a loop. So if you complain about your partner to your family, then your family is going to check in with you, and then you complain again, and then they check in with you. Now, I'm not saying you don't talk to your family about your partner, but there's a difference in saying, hey, we're going through this and we're going to therapy and we're figuring this out, versus he's so this, she's so that, they're so that. And I find that that complaining that we do, it also seeps into what we spot in our partner. We're now looking for them to confirm our complaint. So if we just complained about our partner and said, oh, they never do this, when we go home and they haven't washed the dishes, we're like, oh yeah, see, I was right. And now we're double triggered.
Yes.
Rather than talking to them and communicating and saying, hey, when I come home from work and I see this, I'm triggered by XYZ.
Wow.
Let's talk about this. So complaining.
Yep. And that goes back into your third agreement of love.
Yeah.
So I love that.
And the fourth and final one that comes to mind right now is this one's really tough, because I had a friend who was going through this a lot. Whenever he was making progress in something, like let's say he got a promotion, his partner would say to him, I don't know how they promoted you. I never see you work.
Oh my gosh.
It was criticism.
Like diminishing them.
Diminishing them. So it's criticism. Yeah, it's like diminishing them about something that they've achieved or missed out on. Or someone saying, oh, I didn't get that promotion. And you say, well, yeah, I didn't really see you work for it. Right? So there's criticism either way. And I think we do this because we want to be honest with our partners, or we want to tell them the truth. We don't want to lie to them. Or most of the time, it's because we're hard on ourselves.
Right.
We're criticizing ourselves for not achieving what we wanted. And now we project that criticism onto our partner for what they wanted. And criticism ends up making someone feel so far away from you. Like criticism increases distance in a relationship. It pushes someone so far away because you've made them feel unworthy, unwanted, and not enough.
Yes.
And again, I'm not saying the opposite is praise your partner, tell them really nice things about themselves, but there's a way to communicate about certain challenges they're going through. It's not in the moment saying, hey, I didn't get the job. Oh yeah, well, better luck next time. Or, oh, it didn't quite work out. And you might say, well, people don't do this. I promise you, what I'd love for everyone to do with this, I'm going to set a little challenge. If you're in a relationship, I want you to do an audit or a count of how many of these you do every week about your partner. So just do it honestly. Honestly, for the next 7 days, if you're in a relationship, think about how often you complain, compare, criticize, or try to control, and just keep a count. Now, you may get through the week and you only do one. That's amazing. I'm really, really happy. But if you're really self-aware and you're really questioning yourself, I'd find that even I do a few of these things constantly.